Billionaire discovers shocking secret. His wife's unexpected plan to expel his paralyzed mother. Ethan James stared at Claire, the sunlight spilling into the pristine kitchen like a cruel joke. Her words echoed in his mind, reverberating against the glossy walls. "We can't have your mother here, Ethan. It reflects poorly on our image." The pain pierced through the fog of disbelief, threatening to overwhelm him. He had built his empire on innovation and integrity, but this was a new threat. The woman he loved was asking him to choose between his heart and the life they had built, and he couldn't comprehend the depths of her insensitivity. His mother, Rose, whose paralysis had redefined both their lives, had been the wellspring of his strength. She raised him alone, instilling values that drove him to succeed. Now, sitting across from Claire, he felt a flurry of conflicting emotions crashing within him. There was an ache for his mother and her unwavering love that had endured adversity. But his wife's beauty and charm wrapped around him like an enticing siren song, making him question whether he could fight for what was right without losing everything he held dear. As Ethan shifted in his seat, the taste of bitterness lingered. He had sacrificed so much for success, and now Claire was stripping away the very fabric of his identity, demanding he conform to societal expectations. The elite circles he navigated were filled with superficiality, but he thought Claire understood that. The tension in the room was palpable, knotting his insides, echoing the struggles of his past. Racing thoughts collided, forming a whirlwind of doubt. What kind of man had he become to even consider her proposition? "Ethan," Claire pressed, her voice a mix of urgency and a scathing lack of empathy. "Think about our future. This is about our brand." The way she framed it felt cold and calculating. It wasn't just a disagreement. It felt as if she was taking a sledgehammer to the values he cherished. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." The whirlwind within him intensified as Claire's words settled like a fog, dense, suffocating. Memories whisked him back to childhood, to the resentful stares of neighbors who eyed them in judgment. He could still recall the whispers, the laughter when he brought friends home, the symphony of isolation that wrapped around his childhood. Those were the moments that reinforced his bond with Rose, her spunk and determination kindling a fire within him. He couldn't allow Claire's vision of acceptance to erase all he fought for. Yet, there lingered a sinister doubt. Could he stand against the woman he chose as his partner? The one whose presence glimmered with hope for a bright future? Ethan felt the walls closing in, his chest tightening. Claire's ultimatum, poised like a knife at his throat, demanded an answer. The implications clawed at him. "You're asking me to deny my mother for the sake of your ambitions?" Silence thickened in the air, hanging there like a delicate thread ready to snap. Ethan's heart beat in time with his mounting anxiety, tension blossoming around them. What would it mean to turn his back on Rose? The cavernous chasm of uncertainty opened wide beneath his feet, and just as he contemplated the abyss, a series of letters in the attic flickered like a neon sign, whispering secrets that lurked in the shadows of his family history. Maybe there was more at stake than he ever realized. He stood at a precipice, casting a look at both of the women who shaped his life. Would he forsake the love of a mother for the seductive comfort of a lavish life? The question hung heavy, pulsing with urgency. The truth was unraveling, and Ethan was left with only one certainty: something was buried beneath the surface, threatening to alter everything he thought he knew. He could either forge a path guided by his mother's lessons of resilience, or become a pawn in Claire's game of image and ambition. Whatever path he chose, the dominoes were set to fall, forcing him to confront the very core of who he was. Ethan stood at the kitchen island, reeling from the weight of Claire's ultimatum. As the golden rays streamed through the glass, they illuminated the stark contrast between his two worlds. On one side, there was the warmth and nurturing spirit of his mother, Rose, whose sacrifices embodied unconditional love. On the other, the glamorous, polished life Claire offered an existence predicated on image, status, and superficial expectations. Clenching his fists, Ethan felt the urge to defy. This was not merely a familial dispute. It was a battle for his identity. Memories of his youth collided with the present. He'd once been fueled by the belief that success came with integrity and familial devotion. But Claire's demand made him question whether ideals mattered in a society that thrived on appearances. Battling the urge to capitulate to her wishes, he forced himself to sit back, attempting to rein in the emotional tempest. "I won't abandon her," he declared, more resolute than he felt. The confession hung between them, a fragile yet resilient line. Claire's expression faltered for just a moment, her facade slipping as uncertainty flickered across her delicate features. Yet, almost instantly, she re-established her composure, her eyes narrowing like a predator's ready to pounce. "Think carefully, Ethan. You know how this will impact our lives. Your mother, she's a burden we can't afford," Claire said, her words laced with an air of urgency that unsettled him. Beneath the surface, Ethan could sense something deeper, an ambition that trumped dignity. She was selling him a dream built on the ashes of someone else's suffering. Ethan took a calculated breath, grappling with his impending decisions. An idea began to take root, fueled by a blend of desperation and determination. Perhaps this internal conflict was not just a divide between mother and wife, but a crucible to reshape his identity. Maybe he could confront Claire's plan not with hostility, but with clarity and strength, exposing the cracks in her reasoning. "Let us meet with my mother," Ethan said, his voice steady. Claire's brow furrowed in disbelief. "If she has much of a burden, as you say, let us hear it from her. Maybe we can work through this together." For a moment, he caught a glimpse of vulnerability in Claire's posture. Was he daring to unravel the threads she had so meticulously woven? Maybe he had stumbled upon a path that could showcase both his loyalty to his mother and his commitment to his partner. The thought sparked a flicker of hope amid the chaos. Claire's silence was deafening, punctuated only by the ticking of the wall clock, each second an echo of the torment that had invaded their lives. Fueled by the nagging tension, Ethan felt a shift in perspective. He could not just rally for his mother, it was time to transform how he approached relationships altogether. This decision could be a catalyst for growth, not just for him, but for both women in his life. As the day wore on, the initial shock morphed into a steely resolve. Ethan would challenge the status quo, navigate through Claire's ambitions, and confront the hidden complexities of family loyalty versus personal desires. He had some research to conduct, secrets to uncover. As he climbed into the attic that evening, the faded letters from his past felt like a light beckoning in the dark, whispering truths that could redefine everything. Swallowing hard, Ethan grasped the first envelope that held his mother's handwriting. "What secrets will you reveal?" he muttered to himself, determination coursing through him. Just as he began to open the letters, the unsettling thought crept in once more. Would the truths he uncovered solidify his place or fracture the fragile relationships he was trying to hold together? With each turn of the envelope, he knew he was about to ignite not just a countdown to revelations, but a turning point that could change their entire narrative forever. The moment had arrived where understanding would clash with ambition, and the consequences, he feared, would be far-reaching. As Ethan carefully peeled back the flap of the first envelope, the scent of aged paper and faded ink seeped into his senses, transporting him to a time when the world felt simpler. The weight of those memories intensified the pressure that pooled in his chest. What would these letters reveal? Would they strengthen his resolve, or would they uncover secrets that only deepened his internal struggle? With each word he read, a deeper narrative unfolded, one that spoke of hardship, of resilience, and a mother's enduring love. She had always shielded him from the harsh realities of life, while carrying burdens he was only now beginning to grasp. The letters chronicled not just her sacrifices, but her unwavering belief in him, imbued with dreams he had long set aside. In a particularly poignant letter, Rose described her hope for Ethan's future. "Never forget, my darling, integrity is the bedrock of true success. Remember who you are and where you came from. Love and loyalty are your guiding stars." She had poured her soul into those words, a reminder of the man he aspired to be. Feeling overwhelmed, Ethan paused, the implications washing over him. Claire's relentless ambition was built upon the shaky foundation of superficiality, a stark contrast to his mother's enduring values. His fingers trembled as he turned the pages, desperation mingling with a fierce determination. "What do I truly want?" he asked himself. Was he ready to dismantle the life he had built with Claire for the sake of a relationship that could never align with his fundamental beliefs? The question hung in the air, and for the first time, Ethan felt the crystalline clarity of self-awareness. He was not merely striving to appease two powerful women. He was coming to terms with his own identity. Hours slipped away as he immersed himself in the letters. Fragments of his childhood echoed through the attic. A notable comment caught his eye. "Ethan, you are destined for greatness, but never forget the strength that stems from humility." Each line resonated as he envisioned life without the shackles of pretension that Claire imposed. This journey of introspection was not just about deciding between two women, but a deeper exploration of values that had shaped him. Emerging from the attic, Ethan felt a shift within himself, as if he had returned from a pilgrimage of the heart. Armed with the revelations from those letters, he realized he possessed a unique blend of empathy and pragmatism that could help him confront Claire. But the confrontation would require strategy and finesse. He needed to brace himself for the encounter, to be prepared for Claire's possible rage or defensiveness. Ethan envisioned the conversation like a battlefield, each word a weapon that he would wield, crafted from the wisdom his mother had bestowed upon him. It was not just about winning the argument. It would be about reclaiming his own narrative. Through the window, the evening sky deepened to a bruised violet, mirroring the tempest brewing within him. He was ready to confront Claire, but not out of anger or resentment. His objective was clarity. He needed her to understand that loyalty to his mother did not negate his commitment to their partnership. The stakes were now staggeringly high. As Ethan steeled himself for what was to come, a pulse of anxiety hummed beneath his skin. He had no idea how Claire would respond to his new resolve, nor did he know if their relationship could withstand the truth he was prepared to reveal. In the quiet space between breaths, he contemplated the essential duality of love and ambition. The real question loomed larger than ever: could there be room for both in his life, or would he have to choose a side? Ethan's thoughts churned with anticipation. Was he prepared for the potential fallout? Just as he was about to lose himself in further contemplation, a sudden realization struck. The time had come to face Claire on his terms. And with that clarity surged a dichotomy. He wasn't sure he could reconcile. The moment had arrived, but the true battle was just beginning. Ethan stood at the foot of the stairs, heart pounding. The distance to the living room felt monumental. With every step, each heartbeat echoed his mounting trepidation. As he approached Claire, seated on the plush couch, her fingers danced across her phone, seemingly oblivious to the tempest gathering in his chest. The familiar change sweeping through him compelled him to align his reality with newfound purpose. "Claire, we need to talk," he began, his own voice startling him. It was steady, yet weighed down by unspoken truths. She lifted her gaze, eyebrows arching in surprise, but her expression quickly settled into something between irritation and expectation. "Can it wait? I have some important calls to make," she replied, not bothering to hide her annoyance, immediately sending a rush of doubt through Ethan. "This can't wait," he insisted, forcing himself to take another step closer, body braced against the onslaught of her dismissive demeanor. The letters had instilled in him a sense of empowerment he couldn't ignore, igniting not just a desire for clarity, but a necessity to confront the reality he had allowed to fester in the shadows. Claire sighed heavily, placing her phone down with deliberate slowness. "Fine," she said, her tone clipped. "What is it?" As he settled into the armchair across from her, Ethan felt an unfamiliar sense of resolve chase away the lingering shadows of uncertainty. He took a deep breath, measuring his words carefully, balancing honesty with love. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our life together, our future." He paused, gauging her reaction. Her fingers tapped against the couch, impatience thinly veiled. "And my mother," he started, the weight of her letters acting as talismans against the onslaught he anticipated. "She has had a significant impact on who I am. I can't continue building our lives without honoring that." "Are you serious?" Claire scoffed, leaning forward. "Your mother has become a liability. We can't move forward with her as part of the picture." The words came out sharper than a knife, as if they were meant to cut through the very bond that tethered him to her. Ethan's breath caught, a surge of anger flushing through him, mingled with shock and hurt. "A liability?" he echoed incredulously. "She's my family, Claire. She's paralyzed and needs support, not exclusion." The words felt like both a declaration and a confirmation of his own convictions. Claire straightened, her expression shifting from disdain to something almost offensive. "What kind of life do you think we could have with her living here, relying on us? You can't seriously think I would just welcome that chaos." It was as if the two of them stood in stark contrast, he, rooted in loyalty and love, while she was fencing him in with the cold steel of ambition and prosperity. For a moment, doubt crashed against Ethan's resolve. Was he risking everything for someone who might never accept the values he held dear? "No, it's not chaos. It's family," he countered, his voice quieter now. "My mother embodies strength and determination. You could learn from that. We both could." As Ethan spoke, he realized that this conversation was not just about his mother's place, but about the relationship itself. Their clashing values, once a mere discomfort in their union, now revealed themselves as irreconcilable. Claire's lips pressed into a thin line, her frustration morphing into something darker. "You're going to regret putting her ahead of us. You think my ambitions are selfish, but I'm trying to build something we can both be proud of." A chill seeped through Ethan's heart. The choice ahead of him was not one he could evade. The love he had once felt for Claire now battled with a need for authenticity, testing limits he had never thought he'd reach. "Maybe I'm not sure I can be proud of the future you envision, if it means excluding those who matter most," he said, his conviction faltering under the weight of her challenge. In that moment, he recognized the fierce truth about himself. He was ready to protect his identity and the values infused within him. He could no longer be a pawn in her game of success. Tension sizzled in the air, each heartbeat marking the pivotal choice that lay before him. Would he stand firm, risking everything for the clarity of his convictions, or would he yield to the allure of ambition? As Claire's eyes narrowed, the resolution flickered in her gaze, and Ethan braced himself for what could follow. This was only the beginning of a reckoning that could redefine everything. What would be the final cost of this confrontation? Would he emerge as the man his mother had always believed he could be, or would he lose the battle for his own identity? Ethan felt each second stretch into eternity as he waited for Claire's response. Her silence was suffocating, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken words. Her expression shifted between annoyance and something akin to contemplation, but there was no clarity, only the weight of unresolved conflict. "You think you're so noble, standing up for your mother. But have you truly considered the life we could have?" Her voice cut through the tension, every word tinged with frustration. "You want to invite more chaos into our lives for nostalgia's sake? That's not wisdom. That's foolishness." His pulse quickened, but Ethan forced himself to steady his breath. In that moment of stillness, a realization dawned on him. This was more than a simple disagreement. It was a defining point in his life. "It's not just nostalgia, Claire. It's about values, about empathy. I can't forget who I am or where I came from, and neither should you." She shook her head as if trying to dismiss his words, but he saw a flicker of uncertainty behind her fierce demeanor. The thought encouraged him to press further. Have you ever thought of what it's like for her? To feel abandoned by the very family that should uplift her? This isn't just about us. It's about doing what's right. Each point Ethan made was met with resistance, and yet he felt himself growing stronger, more resolute. I can't believe you're making this about morals, Claire shot back, her voice rising. You're being naive. I didn't work this hard so we could take care of a paralyzed woman. That's not the life I envisioned. Ethan. Deep inside, Ethan wrestled with a swelling tide of emotions. Anger, disbelief, yet a burgeoning sense of clarity. Claire's ambitions had always been a cornerstone of their relationship, an aspect he admired. But it had also fostered an unhealthy arrangement. His support for her dreams often came at the cost of his own ideals and convictions. I'm not mistaking values for naivety, he declared, straightening in his seat, a wave of determination pushing him forward. This isn't about what you want or what we could build. This is about honoring my family, about who I am at my core. His heart raced, fueled by the gravity of his words, realizing that he no longer wanted to be swayed by her point of view at the expense of his own identity. Their relationship was unearthing a hidden strength within him, each confrontation chiseling away at the doubt that had once clouded his decisions. Claire crossed her arms over her chest, and her body language screamed defiance. It was as if she were building walls around herself, but Ethan pressed on. I've spent years conforming to what others expect of me, first my mother, then you. But I have to be true to myself. It's the only way I will grow, both personally and professionally. Professionally? She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the room. Why do you think this is compatible with your career? Your mother's needs will derail everything we've built together. You can't put her ahead of your future. The horror of her words sank into him, but instead of retreating, his resolve solidified. Ethan understood that to honor his values, he had to be willing to let go of the relationship if it could never accommodate his truth. What future would that be? He countered, the urgency building in his voice. A future without compassion, burdened with resentment for what could have been. I can't live that way. A moment of silence hung heavy between them, a stillness filled with the realization of irrevocable choices. Ethan was emerging, a version of himself that embraced authenticity over superficial success. As Claire's eyes widened in disbelief, a new fear dawned on Ethan. What confronting Claire meant risking everything he had come to know. The nagging question churned in his mind. With every heartbeat, Ethan understood. This was the turning point, an opportunity to reclaim his identity or risk losing it entirely. Would he find the courage to pursue a future aligned with his values? Or would the shadows of his past pull him back into the cycle of compromise? In that charged moment, Ethan realized it was time to confront more than just Claire. It was time to confront himself, to embrace a truth that could redefine everything he once thought he desired. Was he prepared to let go, to stand for what was right, even if it cost him dearly? Ethan's mind raced as he absorbed Claire's words, each syllable echoing in the silence that enveloped them. The truth of his situation crystallized, cutting through the confusion and doubt. The undeniable reality was that he had been living in a reactionary state for too long, molded by Claire's ambitions and visions. Now, as he steered into his inner conviction, he felt an unfamiliar sense of autonomy swell within him. He inhaled deeply, the essence of the room cloaked in a mixture of anger and uncertainty. You speak of our future as if you own it, he said, his voice no longer shaky but firm. But what about the future of my family? What if I want to integrate my past with your aspirations instead of sacrificing one for the other? Claire's eyes narrowed, her irritation palpable. You've always been the one to dwell on the past, Ethan. It hinders you. The conviction in her tone was a mirror to his past complacency and opposition to change. Yet, he was no longer her reflection. I've allowed myself to be hindered. Yes, but it's time to choose a different path. The weight of those words settled onto him like a late afternoon sun. It felt liberating, yet the ramifications were daunting. He had forged a life built on compromise, yet standing up was forcing him to envision rupturing the very fabric of what he had established alongside Claire. His throat tightened as he reflected inward. The quiet moments with his mother, their shared laughs, and heart-wrenching stories formed a lattice of responsibility around his heart. Was he willing to dismantle that for the sake of staying in an easy, albeit turbulent, relationship? Why can't you see? This is not an either-or dilemma. He could feel the passion signing through his veins, shaping his speech as fiercely as the desire to defend his mother inspired him. I want to support you, to support us, but I can't pretend my family doesn't matter. I want to thrive in a world that includes her. Their argument had spiraled, but now it felt fundamentally different. He sensed it was time for resolution. Maybe not the happy kind, but a closure born out of honesty. Claire studied him, her expression fluctuating between incredulity and disdain. If you want to forge this path, you need to know I will not join you. My life is not built on accommodating others' ghosts. Ethan felt his heart clench at her words. The realization hung heavy. This confrontation was just as much about their relationship as it was about his self-affirmation. He stood up abruptly, pacing the room, each step igniting a fire beneath him. Vulnerability surfaced as he reflected on the intersecting lines of his ambition and maternal duty. This isn't about ghosts, Claire. It's about honoring the living my mom, myself, and who I want to become. If that doesn't fit in your life, then what are we? Is it a marriage based on convenience or respect? The question loomed heavy. He feared the answer, yet he clung desperately to the possibility of liberation. What if this moment was a nidus for growth, for finally integrating the pieces of himself that had remained fractured? Claire's silence, laden with heavy contemplation, didn't comfort him. Her strategic mind raced behind those sharp eyes, and he could sense she was calculating her next move, potentially wielding her own truths like weapons. I need time, Ethan, she finally said, the weariness underscoring her words. This changes everything. As her vulnerability exposed the cracks in her assurance, Ethan was filled with a flurry of emotions: relief, anxiety, hopefulness. There was power in seeking truth, but the realization struck him hard. Confronting one's deeply ingrained beliefs often leads to isolation. Take all the time you need, Claire, he replied, deliberately crafting his voice to be steady rather than faltering. But I want to wait in limbo. I need to move forward regardless of whether it's together or apart. In a moment, Ethan grasped the essence of personal evolution. Stepping out of the shadows meant embracing uncomfortable truths, and he was willing to embrace the unknown. Yet, as he opened the door to the uncertain future ahead, a new question lingered: could he reconcile the growth he sought with the possibility of losing Claire? As he walked away from the confrontation, Ethan was overwhelmed with both fear and determination. This was his moment, but he sensed the weight of a perilous decision compressing against his heart. The next few days would harbor revelation, and he would need to prepare. Would he find within himself the strength not only to confront Claire, but to confront the wider implications for his family, his career, and ultimately his destiny? The convergence of his past and present was brewing a storm carefully masked yet undeniable, poised to reveal truths that might redefine his very essence. Ethan stepped out into the cool evening air, the crispness biting at his skin, awakening senses dulled by the inside confrontation. He moved through the quiet street, the rhythm of his footsteps matched by the heavy thudding of his heart. The world felt both stark and vibrant, the colors sharper against the haze of his thoughts. It was a strange contrast, embodying both an unsettling uncertainty and an invigorating thrill. The embrace of solitude enveloped him. He found himself questioning the decisions he had made, the expanse of choices he had buried beneath layers of obligation and expectation. Yet now, with every deliberate step, he was unearthing truth. There was an urgency in his mind, a calling to regrow the lost fragments of himself that had quietly eroded in the shadow of Claire's larger dreams. Ethan walked toward the park where he and his mother had often spent time together. A sanctuary amidst the turmoil around him. It held echoes of shared laughter, gentle wisdom, and quiet reassurance. As he entered, he felt drawn to the old oak tree at the heart of the park, its gnarled branches stretching wide, a testament to resilience. The visceral pang of guilt blossomed within him. Should he have done more for his mother? He pursued a corporate career, made sacrifices with Claire, all while promising to care for her. But could he truly uphold that promise if it meant sacrificing his own identity? He sank onto a nearby bench, his hands knotted together, a constellation of hesitations swirling through his mind. What would happen to his career? Would Claire's ambition kill the small flicker of his aspirations nestled deep within? This was a crossroads, a constellation of conflicting desires and responsibilities, forcing him to abandon prior notions of success, derived solely from wealth and status. With an unexpected clarity, he grasped that his mother's happiness extended far beyond financial security. It lay in connections, conversations, and presence. Hadn't he always embraced those moments? They dimmed beneath the weight of an unrelenting ambition that now felt foreign. Here lay the first revelation: his true desires were woven through relationships, stitched with love, empathy, and authenticity. Ethan stood up, a renewed sense of purpose thrumming within him. Walking away from the bench, he decided it was time to arrange a weekend visit with his mother. He wanted to engage with her in a way he hadn't thought necessary before, by rediscovering the lessons she could impart, even how they related to navigating a complex world. This was her heritage, and perhaps he needed to open the door to it fully. As he mulled over the idea, another realization dawned: it was time to confront Claire beyond words. He needed to articulate not just what he was willing to stand for, but what he felt compelled to build: the merger of longing and ambition, a bridge to grow alongside her without losing himself. It wouldn't merely be a defense. It would be an invitation to co-create a future that honored both their paths. His thoughts swirled, building a plan from the ashes of uncertainty. The prospect made his heart race, but this time, he wanted to approach it strategically. They could find a resolution that respected both worlds, a partnership based on respect rather than control. But as he moved through the park, a familiar face emerged from the shadows: a childhood friend, Alex, now a successful entrepreneur. Their brief eye contact sparked an old connection, but Ethan felt an unforeseen tug. Could the very person he once admired now add to the weight of his dilemma? Alex approached, his demeanor casual yet probing. "Ethan, it's been a while. You look intense. Everything okay?" Ethan paused, the moment hanging heavy in the air. He felt like he was on the brink of unveiling a critical choice, and the waves of nostalgia mingled with his current turmoil. "Not quite," Ethan replied, figuring there could be no harm in sharing. "I'm at a crossroads in my life, balancing family obligations, my marriage, and who I want to be." Alex raised an eyebrow. His interest piqued. "Interesting. What is stopping you?" Ethan hesitated, the rawness of his own truth surfacing. This interaction could lead to unexpected insights or a hard reset on the path ahead. He realized Alex could either serve as a sounding board or a catalyst his own feelings tethered tightly around. "Everything," he muttered, the words escaping in a rush. "But the real question is what I'm willing to lose to grab it." In that moment, Ethan understood a decision awaited. While the whirlwind of change brewed within, the prospect of clarity loomed on the horizon. He sensed that answers would emerge soon, but from whom and how remained clouded in ambiguity. As he faced Alex, that familiar pulse of tension ignited again. This moment would prove crucial in transforming his trajectory, but the question lingered uncomfortably: could he embrace the unfolding narrative without sacrificing those he cared for? Ethan stood before Alex, the weight of his turmoil blossoming into a tangible force. This childhood friend, now a successful entrepreneur, had always been a beacon of ambition and drive, attributes he had once admired. Yet, faced with the fierce cacophony of his own discontent, he found their dynamic tinged with an unsettling complexity. "Why you sound so defeated?" Alex inquired, his voice laden with an insistent curiosity. Ethan felt defensive, the instinct to retreat bubbling beneath the surface. "Because I am," he admitted, a flicker of vulnerability piercing through the armor he had worn for so long. "I feel like I'm losing everything: my career, my marriage, even my mom." "Have you thought about what you really want?" Alex pressed, his gaze steady and unwavering. The question echoed in Ethan's mind, reverberating through the uncertainty like a drumbeat. What did he truly want? As the images of his mother's smile and Claire's ambition clashed in his psyche, he found himself unspooling the thread of dreams he once carefully wove. "More than anything, I want balance," Ethan said slowly, each word weighed with intention. "I need to figure out how to be there for my mom while supporting Claire's dreams too. I can't sacrifice one for the other." "Then what are you afraid of?" That question cut deeper than Ethan expected. It wasn't fear he felt, but an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. He was haunted by the notion that choosing one side would inevitably leave him shunned by the other. Being perceived as weak, he confessed, "I've invested so much in this corporate image, in building a future for all of us. Choosing my mom's needs might feel like I'm giving up on Claire, or worse, failing." Alex leaned against a nearby tree, arms crossed, contemplating Ethan's words. "Ethan, strength isn't about sacrificing one for the other. It's about finding a way to weave those two worlds together," he advised. "Why not be bold enough to negotiate both?" A heat surged through Ethan's chest, a flicker of inspiration. Could he challenge the rigidity of his life's narrative? Would facing Claire not as an opponent, but as a partner, allow them to cultivate a victory together? The more he pondered, the sharper his resolve became. "I need to confront Claire, to express what I'm willing to fight for," he said, his voice thick with determination. Alex's eyebrows arched. "And if she doesn't understand?" That question loomed ominously. What if Claire rejected the notion of compromise? The fear of that rejection clawed at him. Yet at the same time, the thought of remaining trapped in this cycle of avoidance ignited a familiar frustration. "That's a risk I'll have to take," Ethan said, voice steady. "I owe it to myself and to her to speak my truth." As night descended upon the park, shadows deepened, mirroring the complexities blossoming in his mind. The conversation surrounding his incongruent life became an intricate web that demanded unraveling. "Trust yourself," Alex encouraged. "You may even surprise yourself with what you're capable of." The weight of these words tinged Ethan's thoughts with possibility. He understood that confronting Claire was essential, but how would he approach her? Would it be enough to simply voice his feelings? Or would he need to present a plan that encompassed both their futures, an earnest synthesis of their aspirations without the distortions of pride? He shuffled nervously, his heart racing at the impending confrontation. Ethan was stepping into uncharted territories of his emotions. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. "Thanks for listening, Alex," Ethan managed. "I think it's time I stopped being afraid of what I have to lose and started being excited about what I could gain." "Anytime," Alex replied, a confident smile playing on his lips before he began to walk away. Ethan felt a sense of camaraderie wash over him, but the storm of uncertainties still raged within. He was standing on the precipice of change, and the outcome remained shrouded in fog. As he left the park, Ethan was buoyed by a flicker of hope, but was painfully aware that confronting Claire would be the defining moment, the moment that would either forge a path forward or plunge him deeper into the depths of conflict. And with every step, he could feel the tide of change building a surge of courage, propelling him toward what could either be liberation or devastation. But before he could glimpse what lay beyond, he had to fathom how far he was willing to venture into that uncertain terrain. Would he be ready for the truth that awaited him on the other side? Ethan returned home, the air thick with anticipation and doubt. Each footstep felt more substantial than the last, reverberating with the impending confrontation that loomed ahead. He steadied himself as he pushed the front door open, pausing for a moment to absorb the familiar surroundings that had begun to suffocate him in recent months. The bright sheen of their modern kitchen, the cozy couch in the living room, all flashed reminders of a life that appeared perfect but felt anything but. Claire was at the dining table, immersed in a document, her brow furrowed in concentration. He hesitated, heart racing, replaying the dialogue in his mind. How to initiate this conversation took on layers of complexity. Would she be receptive to his plea for balance? Or would she view it as a threat to her meticulously curated ambition? "Hey, Ethan," Claire acknowledged without glancing up. "I didn't expect you home so soon. How was your meeting?" He stepped further inside, gathering courage with every passing second. "It went okay. But can we talk? There's something important I need to discuss." Finally looking up, her expression shifted from mild curiosity to a faint edge of concern, as if sensing the gravity of his tone. "Sure. What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, he pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "It's about everything we've been dealing with lately. My mom has health, and you know us." Anxiety gripped him, but he pressed forward. "I've been feeling overwhelmed." Claire's frown deepened. "Overwhelmed? We're working through this. I thought we had an understanding. You were just going to have to prioritize." The words sliced through his resolve. Could it really be this simple for her? "Claire, what if I told you that prioritizing doesn't mean sacrificing my mom or pushing aside our dreams? I believe there's a way for both of us to navigate this without feeling like we're constantly at odds." For a moment, she simply stared at him, disbelief shadowing her features. "Are you suggesting we just rearrange everything? Just like that? Do you even understand what's at stake here? I have opportunities in front of me that don't wait for anyone. It's not just about you." He shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "My mother needs support, and I can't do it alone. But I also can't watch you chase your goals while I lose everything that matters at home. I'm asking for balance between us." His voice softened, vulnerability spilling forth. "Can you meet me halfway?" The silence that enveloped them was thick and fraught with tension. Claire's gaze flickered away, and Ethan could see her mind racing, her defenses ready with counterarguments shaped by frustration and ambition. "Ethan, I don't know if it's possible," she finally muttered. "Do you realize what you're asking? It's like you're asking me to dim my own light just so you can feel better about your mom's situation." In that moment, he had an epiphany. What if their visions didn't have to clash? What if rather than asking for a compromise, he could offer one that intertwined both their ambitions? "Instead of seeing this as me dimming your light, let us redefine our priorities together. We could carve out time for your projects, while also identifying when I need to be there for my mom. We can plan for both." Claire leaned back, contemplating the shift in perspective he introduced. Beneath her cool exterior, he discerned the wheels turning, the struggle between her ego and her empathy. "I'll think about it," she finally said, but the hesitation in her voice rang with uncertainty. Her brow furrowed again, not with contemplation this time, but with concern. "Ethan, you know things aren't easy for me, either. I didn't expect to need to compromise when we started this journey." Her admission hit him, coupling empathy with guilt. "And I didn't expect to feel this way. But here we are. The question is, are we willing to shift our mindset together? Can we bridge the gap?" The challenge now lay in the ambiguity of her response. As Claire closed her eyes for a moment, Ethan could see the flood of thoughts grappling within her. This was an invitation for them to dance on the precipice of their intertwined ambitions. But would she take that step? The unresolved nature of their discussion hung heavily in the air, igniting a tension that felt electric. Ethan knew this was just the beginning of a conversation that could either unify them or reveal deeper fractures. As they faced each other, he sensed that the real transformation was still yet to unfold. Would Claire take the leap with him, or would their paths diverge in the face of individual ambition, leaving him to grapple with a choice that could shatter the faint hope for balance? Ethan took a deep breath, the silence growing heavier with each passing second. Claire stared at him, her expression a mix of uncertainty and contemplation. This was the moment he had been preparing for, a convergence of their divergent realities crafted from ambition and familial devotion. "Claire, I know this is a lot to process, but I believe we can create a life that honors both our dreams and my responsibilities at home," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the tremor of doubt beneath his words. She shifted in her seat, her fingers tracing the table's surface as if seeking clarity in the wood grain. "It's not that simple, Ethan. You talk about balance, but the reality of our lives is that there's a limited amount of time and energy. Something has to give." Ethan felt a rush of frustration. It echoed what had haunted him for too long, the belief that sacrifice was the only route to success. "I get that, but I refuse to accept that we have to choose between love and ambition. We've built so much together, Claire. Can we really throw that away over this?" Her hesitation was palpable, creating a chasm of uncertainty. The air crackled with emotions left unspoken, driving Ethan to probe deeper. "What if we allowed ourselves a moment to envision a future that sees my mother as part of our success, not an obstacle to it?" Claire's brow furrowed as she met his gaze, her defenses slowly lowering. "What does that even look like?" she asked sharply, though he could sense the wavering in her tone. "That means integrating our worlds, inviting her into our lives, while also establishing boundaries that keep your ambitions intact. We could plan scheduled visits to care for her and still carve out time for your important projects. It doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing approach." The corners of Claire's mouth tightened, unyielding to his idea, but Ethan pressed on. "It's about collaboration, about recognizing that strength lies in diversity, not just in our personal identities, but in how we navigate through them. You've always said you admire my authenticity. This is where that needs to manifest. I'm asking you to trust me." A flicker of recognition danced in her eyes, certainly grasping something profound within his words. "But we'll hold weight for you. The moment you choose to take care of her, and not me." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine, and yet, in that very instance, he found a strength he fully realized existed within him. "It will, because ultimately, this is about growth for us both. My mother raised me on these values, Claire, to embrace complexity, to bring love alongside ambition. You taught me that dreams are worth pursuing, but you've also left behind a part of yourself in the pursuit." Claire seemed taken aback by the honesty, and the silence between them shifted from discomfort to contemplation. This was a narrative about more than just a choice. It was a history filled with shared struggles and triumphs, morphing into a desire for their married journey to reflect that evolution. "Ethan," Claire finally spoke, the hesitation lingering in her voice. "If we're going to do this, it can't be half-hearted. It has to be real, and this means committing to a path together, wholly." "Yes," he replied, his eyes steady, "and it can start today. We can set a family dinner with my mother for this weekend, don't you see? A step toward unity." The corners of Claire's lips softened ever so slightly, and for the first time, Ethan saw a glimpse of hope form within her. "I need to believe that that path is sustainable, that it won't become a constant tug-of-war between us." Ethan felt the weight of that concern, recognizing the challenge but also the foothold it provided, a foundation on which they could build understanding. "Then let us make it sustainable together. We can establish ground rules that honor both our commitments, my commitment to my mother and yours to your career. Nothing builds a strong relationship like shared understanding." Claire finally nodded, the barriers around her heart beginning to crack, if only just slightly. "You truly believe we can do this?" "I believe we have to," Ethan said, gingerly reaching across the table and covering her hand with his. "I refuse to let ambition overshadow love. If we're to realize our potential, it starts with that belief." As they sat there, hands joined, a subtle shift occurred within Ethan. He felt her embrace, not just in body, but in spirit, emerging of two worlds rooted in respect. In that moment, he internally acknowledged that he had conquered doubt. He had stood firm in his identity, refusing to compromise on myself for the sake of ambition. With the path ahead mapped out, he felt an unparalleled sense of clarity wash over him. He had succeeded in affirming his values without losing his partnership, and it bolstered a newfound confidence that surged within. Their relationship could evolve, growing stronger amid the complexities that had threatened their union. creating a tapestry interwoven with both love and ambition. Ethan glanced at Claire, a sense of fulfillment settling upon him. The true journey of transformation had begun not just for him, but for them. He had learned to advocate for himself while embracing the depth of their connection. Both mother's love and the ambition he once feared were no longer adversaries, but allies in this dance called life. Now, as he faced the unpredictable future, he finally proclaimed a truth he believed deep down. He could have it all without forsaking anything, carving out a life marked with integrity, love, and the resilience of family ties. It was then he realized something important. He wasn't just reclaiming his identity, but sharing with others what it truly meant to transform challenges into opportunities while standing for one's principles, nestled securely in love. As he stood, he could feel the groundwork for an optimistic future, a tapestry rich in hope and possibility, waiting to unfurl before him. The call of transformation was echoing within him. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because you need to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.